There is a rare mental state in which time seems to disappear. You start a task and, when you realize it, hours have passed. The mind is clear, the effort seems manageable, and productivity happens without internal struggle. This state is deep focus. And most people spend their entire lives without being able to access it consistently. What almost nobody understands is that the brain doesn't enter deep focus by sheer willpower. He enters when he learns to desire that state. When the focus shifts from effort to reward. Just as the brain learns to seek distractions, it can learn to seek depth. Today, the modern environment trains the brain for the opposite. Fragmented attention, constant stimuli, quick rewards. Each interruption reinforces a pattern. The brain learns that depth is uncomfortable and superficiality is safe. Over time, maintaining focus for more than a few minutes seems impossible. But this is not your fault. It's conditioning. And everything that has been conditioned can be reconditioned. There are people who can enter deep focus almost on command. Not because they were born different, but because they taught their brains to associate this state with control, clarity, and real progress. In this video, you will understand how to trick the brain and get it addicted to deep focus. Not with motivational tricks, but using the same mechanisms that create strong habits. Reward, predictability, identity, and environment. If you feel that your attention has been hijacked and want to regain the ability to truly delve deep, subscribe to the channel now. Here, the focus is on deep productivity, cognitive psychology, and real mental control. When the brain begins to crave deep focus, distraction loses its power. And everything that requires concentration starts to flow in a completely different way. To make the brain addicted to deep focus, it is necessary to understand why it usually avoids this state. The brain does not shy away from concentration itself. It flees from the initial effort that comes before it. The first minutes of deep focus are uncomfortable. The mind becomes restless, parallel thoughts arise, and the urge to distract oneself appears. This moment is interpreted as a threat. Over time, most people learn to flee exactly at that point. Whenever discomfort appears, they switch tasks, check something quickly, or get distracted. The brain learns a clear lesson. Depth is discomfort. Superficiality is relief. This association strengthens every day. The problem is that the brain also learns the opposite with the same ease. If it is repeatedly exposed to deep focus until the initial discomfort passes, something changes. After this phase, the mind stabilizes. Clarity increases. The effort decreases. And the brain begins to associate deep focus with control and fluidity. This is the point that almost no one crosses. Not due to incapacity, but due to wrong conditioning. The person always leaves before the focus truly settles in. And that's why they believe they can't concentrate. Addicting the brain to deep focus requires consciously going through this initial phase, in a controlled and predictable manner. Not for endless hours, but enough to show the brain that the discomfort passes and something better comes afterward. The first practical adjustment to start getting the brain addicted to deep focus is to create a clear and predictable entry point. The brain resists less when it knows exactly what is going to happen. The common mistake is trying to enter deep focus in an improvised manner. Sit down, open several tasks, and expect concentration to appear. This creates uncertainty, and the brain escapes. To overcome the initial barrier, you need an entry task. Something simple, well-defined, and directly related to the main task. It's not the hardest job. It's what gets the brain moving. Read a specific passage, review a summary, quickly organize the next step. This action reduces the initial friction. When the brain starts to execute, it moves out of the state of alertness and into a state of continuity. The restlessness diminishes because there is now direction. The focus is not yet deep, but the ground is prepared. Another essential element is the close time. Define a short block, with clear beginning and end. It's not forever. It's just this block. The brain accepts effort better when it knows it will end. This reduces anxiety and increases endurance. During this initial block, the goal is not maximum performance. It's to get through. Stay even when the mind tries to escape. Each sustained minute weakens the old association of escape and strengthens the new association of depth. This is how deep focus begins to become accessible. Not by intensity, but by well-conducted repetition. After creating a clear entry point for deep focus, the next factor that makes the brain addicted to this state is the environment. The brain responds intensely to what is around it. Even when you think you are focused, visual and auditory stimuli consume part of your attention without you realizing it. Most people try to enter deep focus in environments that encourage distraction. Cell phone nearby, tabs open, silent but visible notifications. The brain remains in constant alert, waiting for the next interruption. In this state, depth is almost impossible. Creating an environment for deep focus does not require extreme isolation. It requires clarity. Everything that is not related to the task needs to be out of sight. It's not willpower. It's mental engineering. The fewer competing stimuli, the less energy the brain spends defending itself. Another important point is the consistency of the environment. Studying or working always in the same place, with the same basic elements, teaches the brain to associate that space with the state of focus. Over time, just sitting there starts to activate concentration. Adequate lighting, comfortable posture, and few visible objects make a bigger difference than it seems. The brain enters depth more quickly when the body is stable and the environment is predictable. This environmental adjustment drastically reduces the time needed to enter deep focus. The brain learns that in that context there is no easy escape. And when there is no escape, the mind delves deeper. In the next step, we will show how to use the right rhythm and timing to make deep focus increasingly easier to access. After adjusting the environment, the next element that makes the brain addicted to deep focus is the correct duration. The most common mistake is trying to maintain intense focus for too long right from the start. This creates quick fatigue and teaches the brain that depth is synonymous with weariness. Deep focus works like a muscle. It needs to be activated, maintained for an appropriate period, and then released. When you respect this cycle, the brain learns that going deep is not dangerous. It's controllable. Defining focus blocks with realistic duration is essential. Neither too short to not delve deep, nor too long to avoid generating aversion. The important thing is to leave the block with a sense of control. This feeling is what makes the brain want to repeat it. Another important point is conscious closure. Stopping at the planned moment teaches the brain that effort has an end. This reduces future resistance. When you extend too much, even if you are performing, the brain associates deep focus with exhaustion. Between the blocks, simple and neutral pauses help consolidate the mental state. They are not moments of intense stimulation. They are moments of recovery. Breathe, stretch, walk briefly. This prepares the brain for the next cycle. Over time, something changes. Deep focus stops being difficult to access. The brain begins to recognize the rhythm and enters this state more quickly. The initial resistance decreases. The permanence increases. Even with the environment adjusted and the correct pace, many people cannot get addicted to deep focus due to silent errors that sabotage the process. The first one is trying to completely eliminate the initial discomfort. Deep focus always begins with a slight mental friction. When you interpret this friction as a sign of failure, you leave too soon. Another common mistake is interrupting the focus the moment it starts to stabilize. Many people endure the initial difficult phase, delve deeply, but interrupt out of habit. Check something quickly, switch tasks, respond to a message. Each interruption teaches the brain that depth is not safe. There is also the mistake of demanding perfect performance during deep focus. This generates excessive tension. The brain does not delve deeply when it feels constantly evaluated. Deep focus requires the freedom to make mistakes, test, and think without constant judgment. Another powerful saboteur is mixing deep focus with multitasking. Even small shifts break the mental state. The brain does not delve deeply when it knows it will be pulled out at any moment. To get the brain hooked, deep focus needs to be protected. Without interruptions, without excessive demands, and without parallel stimuli. The purer the state, the clearer the internal reward becomes. When you eliminate these errors, something changes. The brain begins to associate deep focus with clarity and control, not with fatigue. When deep focus begins to become accessible, the next challenge is to maintain it without turning that state into something fragile. Many people manage to enter a state of focus sometimes, but they quickly lose it because they start treating this state as something too rare or special. The brain feels this pressure and starts to resist again. A common mistake is trying to force deep focus every day at the same level of intensity. This creates exaggerated expectations. When performance doesn't match, frustration follows. Deep focus is not about constant intensity, but about protected consistency. Some days will be deeper than others, and that's normal. Another saboteur is starting to measure focus by absolute time. How many hours it lasted, how much it produced. When the mind enters this type of accounting during focus, the depth breaks. Deep focus occurs when attention is fully on the task, not on the performance. There is also the risk of turning deep focus into punishment. Using this state only for unpleasant tasks teaches the brain to avoid it. To create a habit, deep focus also needs to be associated with meaningful, creative, or intellectually stimulating tasks. If you've ever felt like you got into focus a few times but couldn't maintain it as a standard, take a moment to like the video. This helps this content reach more people who are also trying to regain the ability to truly focus. In the next step, we will show how to transform deep focus into identity and make the brain naturally seek this state without conscious effort. When deep focus begins to repeat frequently, the brain enters a different stage. It stops seeing this state as effort and starts seeing it as identity. You are no longer trying to concentrate. You are someone who delves deep. This change drastically reduces internal resistance. The brain seeks coherence. When you see yourself as someone capable of maintaining deep attention, any distraction starts to cause discomfort. Not out of guilt, but out of inconsistency. And the brain prefers to maintain the pattern rather than break it. That's how deep focus begins to be sought spontaneously. To consolidate this identity, it is important to make the focus visible to yourself. Not in accumulated hours, but in sessions completed with real depth. Recording well-executed focus blocks creates internal evidence. The brain learns that this state is recurring and accessible. Another essential point is to protect this pattern of stimuli that fragment attention away from deep focus. Excessive use of social media, constant multitasking, and rapid consumption train the brain in the opposite direction. You don't need to eliminate everything, but you need to create clear boundaries. The more contrast between deep focus and distraction, the more valuable focus becomes for the brain. Over time, something silent happens. The brain begins to crave depth. Superficiality loses its charm. Attention strengthens. And tasks that once seemed burdensome become engaging. In the next step, we will transform all of this into a simple and practical system to keep the brain addicted to deep focus in the long term, without relying on constant motivation. Keeping the brain addicted to deep focus requires a simple system, but protected with discipline. The first point is to set a specific time for deep focus. Not when there's time left over, but as a fixed priority. When the brain knows exactly when that state occurs, it starts preparing even before it begins. Next, it is essential to clearly define what the task of deep focus will be. No long lists or open choices. A main task, well-defined. This reduces anxiety and avoids distraction. The brain delves deeper more easily when it knows exactly what it needs to focus on. Another important point is to protect this time from external interruptions. Notify close people, turn off notifications, and create clear barriers. Each interruption avoided reinforces the association that the moment is safe to delve deeper. It is also essential to consciously end the deep focus. Stop at the planned time, even if you are being productive. This teaches the brain that depth does not lead to exhaustion. This sense of control is what keeps the positive addiction active. Throughout the week, reviewing how deep focus went helps adjust the system. Not to judge oneself, but to improve conditions. The brain learns that that state is valued and protected. Over time, deep focus stops being something you need to seek. It becomes something the brain expects. And when that happens, attention gains a rare strength. In the end, getting the brain addicted to deep focus is not about isolating oneself from the world or living in a state of extreme rigidity. It's about reclaiming a skill that has weakened over time. The ability to remain. To stay with an idea, a problem, a mental process without fleeing at the first sign of discomfort. When you teach the brain that deep focus generates clarity, control, and real progress, it starts to seek that state spontaneously. Distraction loses its power not because you fight against it, but because it stops being as rewarding as depth. Most people live trapped in shallow stimuli. Jumping from task to task, from thought to thought. This generates fatigue without progress. Deep focus does the opposite. It concentrates energy, reduces mental noise, and creates results that accumulate over time. When deep focus becomes the norm, everything changes. Studying becomes more efficient. Working becomes more precise. Thinking becomes clearer. You don't do more things. You do better. And this creates a silent advantage in an increasingly distracted world. If this video helped you see focus in a different way, subscribe to the channel now. Here, the goal is to teach deep productivity, cognitive psychology, and scientific methods to build real attention, without relying on constant motivation. Remember this. The brain will always seek what generates the most reward. When you teach the brain that depth is more valuable than distraction, focus stops being an effort and becomes an automatic choice. And when that happens, your intellectual potential stops being wasted and finally starts to be truly utilized.